Today, we're diving deep into the magical realm of using vibration instead of words. We're about to embark on a transformative journey that will shift your reality. You see, my friends, the essence of our existence lies beyond the mere words we speak. It resides in the subtle vibrations that ripple through the quantum field, creating our reality. Today, I want to guide you on how to harness these vibrations to manifest the life you desire. It's time to step into the unknown and create a future that your heart and soul yearn for. Now, many of us are accustomed to the old model of reality, the cause and effect, waiting for external circumstances to change how we feel inside. But what if I told you that you have the power to create your reality from the unknown, from the quantum field? It's time to break free from the limitations of the past and step into the boundless potential of the future. Let me share a secret with you. The key to manifestation is in your feelings. It's not about waiting for external events to trigger a reaction. It's about generating the emotions within yourself first. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? When you feel whole, empowered, and worthy, the universe responds in kind. Think about gratitude, the ultimate state of receivership. You don't wait for something to be grateful for. You cultivate gratitude within yourself. Have you ever given thanks before receiving a gift? The emotional signature of gratitude is a powerful force that signals to the universe that you are ready to receive. It's causing and effect, the quantum dance of creation. Now let's talk about falling in love with a future potential. In the vast quantum field, infinite potentials exist. Can you emotionally embrace a future reality before it manifests? Can you believe in a future that you can't see or touch yet? This is where the magic happens. Your brain changes, your body aligns, and you become a magnet for the experiences you desire. There's an intelligence within and around you that is giving you life at this very moment. It orchestrates the beating of your heart, the digestion of your food, and countless functions in every cell of your body. This force is both personal and universal. It's the giver of life, the consciousness that permeates everything. You might not see it, but it's there, guiding you, observing you into existence. Now let me ask you a crucial question. Are you defined by a vision of the future or the memories of the past? It's a choice we make every moment. If you find yourself in bitterness, frustration, or suffering, it's because your brain is anchored in the chemical residue of the past. But you can break free from this cycle. Let's take a journey into the realm of overcoming emotional residue, especially for those who have faced trauma or abuse. Picture someone who has been through challenging experiences. We won't go back to the painful events, but it's essential to address the lingering emotions that often cling to us like shadows. In the aftermath of trauma, our bodies act like well-trained animals seeking to recreate the familiar emotions associated with those difficult moments. It's almost as if our bodies become conditioned to respond to certain triggers, plunging us back into the emotional depths of the past. This can create a cycle, a loop of emotions that seem difficult to escape. Now here's where the power of awareness and control comes into play. Imagine gaining control over this internal process, much like guiding a trained animal. By becoming aware of this tendency to recreate familiar emotions, you take the reins and steer your body into the present moment. It's a conscious decision to let go of the past's grip on your emotions and embrace the freedom of the present. As you settle your body into the now, you're sending a powerful message. A message that says, I am not defined by my past, I am in control of my present. It's an internal dialogue with your body, telling it that it's no longer the mind, no longer dictated solely by past experiences. You are reclaiming the reins of your life. Now imagine this process as lowering the volume on those destructive emotions. It's like turning down the intensity of a loud noise until it becomes a mere whisper. The more you consciously guide your body into the present moment, the more you tell those destructive emotions that their time is up. You're taking charge, and the once overwhelming emotions begin to fade into the background. This journey is not about erasing or ignoring the past. It's about breaking free from the emotional residue that lingers. It's a conscious effort to untangle yourself from the web of emotions that may have held you captive for far too long. Breaking the addiction to past emotions leads to joy and freedom. You release the torment, and suddenly your body craves a different experience. It's a powerful transformation from being defined by the past to being liberated in the present. Now, grief is a natural process, a biological pruning of neural circuits. It's the void left by something absent in your life. It's okay to feel grief, but it's crucial to come to a greater understanding of death, loss, and adaptation. Life is a constant flow, and as you adapt, you open space for new possibilities. Let's delve into the fascinating world of complaining, emotions, and the incredible transformation that comes with embracing change. Have you ever stopped to think about why we tend to complain when things aren't going well in our lives? Well, it's not just a random habit. There's a profound connection between our emotions in those moments and our past experiences. When life isn't working as we wish, the emotions we feel are like anchors, keeping us tethered to the past. It's as if our minds are wired to revisit old grievances when faced with challenges. This emotional connection to the past can create a cycle of complaining, trapping us in a loop where we repeatedly focus on what went wrong rather than seeking solutions in the present. Now, the journey through the stages of emotions is a crucial aspect of this process. It's not about avoiding or suppressing emotions, but rather understanding and moving through them. As we navigate these emotional stages, what we truly crave is freedom. Freedom from the shackles of past grievances, disappointments, and frustrations. And here's where the magic happens, my friends. I've had the privilege of witnessing this incredible transformation in people from all walks of life. It doesn't matter your age, shape, or size. The power within each individual to break free from the grip of past emotions is awe-inspiring. Picture this: someone who has conquered themselves, overcome the challenges of their past, and emerged on the other side radiating a newfound light. It's not just metaphorical. There's a visible change, a light behind their eyes and a different physical presence. This transformation is a testament to the incredible power we all possess to embrace change, move beyond the limitations of the past, and step into a new reality. Embracing change is not about erasing the past, but transcending it. It's about recognizing that the present moment holds the key to our freedom. The radiance that emanates from those who have embarked on this journey is a beacon of hope for us all. It's a reminder that we can transform our lives regardless of our past struggles or setbacks. So use vibration, not just words, to create the magic in your life. Dive into the quantum field, embrace the unknown, and become the architect of your destiny. You have the power to shift your reality, and it begins with your thoughts, your emotions, and the vibrations you emit into the universe. The best way to predict your future is to create it, not from the known, but from the unknown. Feel the emotions of your desired reality before it manifests, and watch the universe respond in ways you could never have imagined. Now, you're giving your body that energetic boost. Now, everybody's done this. The moment you've said that, no one can talk you out of it. No person, no thing, no experience. You're possessed by it. So then what happens next? You start writing down all the choices you need to make, all the things you got to do, all the goals and experiences you want in your future. And every time you write one of those goals or experiences down, you start to feel more of those emotions. And now you're basically assembling more of your future. Now, the astute person does something really amazing. They start learning more information. You want to be wealthy? Study wealthy people. You want to be healthy? Study healthy people. As you begin to gain more knowledge, you're adding more stitches into the three-dimensional tapestry, and you got more raw materials to dream in new ways. Now here's the part that is the most important. Take out a piece of paper and say, what thoughts do I have to stop thinking? I can't. I'll start tomorrow. I'm too hard. I don't feel like it. I have a headache. I gotta go to sleep. I'm tired. List those thoughts and become so conscious of those thoughts that you would never let one of those thoughts slip by your awareness, unchecked by you. Can I say something about that? I want to jump in on that. One of the powers of writing those thoughts down is you completely eliminate and weaken their influence over you. They become minimized when you write them. They lose their power over you when you grab control of them by writing them down. It's a significantly powerful exercise is to write down those thoughts. From a neuroscientific standpoint, what's called metacognition, because the moment you can observe the thought and become conscious of it, you're no longer the program. Your consciousness observing the program, and you begin to literally objectify your subjective self. And now you're pulling out. So then write down the choices you have to stop making. Look at the things you have to stop doing. Are you complaining? Do you make excuses? Do you blame other people? What do you do? List those things and be really honest with yourself. What experiences do you have to stay away from certain people at certain times of the day? Stay away from them so that you are not in the environment that triggers it. And now here's the most important point. Write down those emotions that keep you anchored to the past, because those emotions are literally residue from the past chemically. So then the moment you start feeling suffering, the moment you start feeling guilt, the moment you start feeling unworthy, the moment you start feeling despair, the moment you start feeling any of those emotions, you're back in your past and you can't see the future. You're thinking within those emotional states. And we've looked at enough brain scans to say that when you think within a certain emotion, you're going to make your brain worse. This research on memory says that 50% of what you talk about in the past isn't even the truth, that you don't have the same brain then. So you make stuff up, which means now you're reliving a past that you didn't even have just to embellish it, to produce the emotions, to reaffirm your limited state. Well, the best way to predict your future is to create it, not from the known, but from the unknown. And that void, that unknown, is the perfect place to create from. Now, why is this dangerous? Because when you're living in survival 70% of the time, there's better chances in survival from running from the unknown than embracing the unknown, right? If there's a predator out there, you hear something around the corner and you can't see it, that's an unknown. You're gonna run. You're not gonna go, and it's not a time to trust. It's not a time to open your heart. It's not a time to communicate, here kitty, kitty. It's not a time to do that. It's a time to run. You'll never trust the unknown in that state. So if people are living by these emotional states of survival, they're never gonna wanna step out into the unknown because they can't predict the future. So they'd rather hold on to what they have. Turns out that those emotions of stress are highly addictive. They give us a rush of adrenaline, rush of energy. And so people use the problems and conditions in their lives to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion so they can remember who they are as a somebody. So then if your thoughts can turn on the stress response and the stress chemicals are addictive, then we become addicted to our own thoughts. So then stepping out into that unknown is where true greatness happens, because that's where the person begins to say, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? What behaviors will I want to demonstrate in my new life? Can I rehearse them in my mind? And the mere process of mental rehearsal, this is neuroscience now, begins to install the circuits in your brain to look like the experience has already occurred. You're priming your brain into the map of the future instead of the record of the past. And then the true person who's in the process of transformation will say, can I teach my body emotionally what that future is going to be like? Can I begin to embrace the joy of my new life? And their body, as their unconscious mind, begins to believe it's in the future instead of in the past. Now, that process is not an overnight process. We don't jump from the old self to the new self. It requires that continuous process of changing our biology. But I can tell you, in observing people who have healed themselves of very serious health conditions, who've healed themselves of some pretty difficult scars from the past, who've overcome addictions, who've created new opportunities and new jobs and new relationships and a new life, had to cross that river. And that is when they're literally, from a biological standpoint, a new personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. And your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's sitting here today has created the present personal reality called their life. Which means then, if you want to create a new personal reality, you got to change your personality. And that means you got to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. Look at your unconscious habits and behaviors, what you say, what you do, and become conscious of it, and change them. And look at the emotions that have kept you anchored to the past and decide if those emotions belong in your future. I think the biggest problem is that most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. So then as we begin to demystify this, the person starts to say, oh my God, the disease that I have is because it's connected to this personality. Is it possible that if I change my personality, just like a person with a multiple personality disorder who has an allergy to nylon stockings in one personality and type 1 diabetes in another, is it possible then if I change my personality that the disease exists in the old personality and I'm literally someone else? Is it possible then from a biological standpoint that they're healed and changed? So to answer the question, it's difficult because we're breaking out of a biological mold. It's difficult because most people don't know that they have within their reach all the tools to do it because they have, number 3, been conditioned on some level to believe that the new hairstyle or the new type of beer they're going to drink or the sports car or whatever it is going to change their state. And that's the hypnosis. And when I wrote The Placebo, You Are the Placebo, the biggest thing that I walked away with after writing that book was how hypnotized and programmed we really are. And that's bothered me ever since I wrote the book, because people watch things in their external environment and they accept, believe, and surrender to that information without any analysis, and they're programmed. And so when you and I start waking up and say no to those programs, and we start to think that we're maybe a little bit more unlimited than we're given credit for, and it's not driven for profits or self-interest, but when people start to wake up and say, hey, you know, I healed myself of this condition, I healed myself of Parkinson's, I healed myself of lupus, I healed myself of cancer, I healed myself of rheumatoid arthritis, I've healed myself of chronic pain, I healed myself of food allergies. Hey, yeah, I was abused as a child. Yeah, that's right, I was beat up by a violent father, and I lived in vulnerability and fear for the last 25 years. But that fear has signaled the wrong gene, and I developed this genetic condition. It's not enough to just have a clear intention, because clear intentions have very little effect on the nature of reality. Most people don't know that they're moving in and out of the quantum field 7.8 times per second, that you're vibrating in and out of the field all the time, and every time you leave, you disappear, and when you come back, you disappear into that field of information, and you come back with information. But if you go out as the same person, you don't bring any new information back. Are you with me? If you look at quantum physics, the physics of possibility, it's really talking about the spiritual aspect of ourselves, because you couldn't explain a miracle, you couldn't explain a biological process, you couldn't explain a simple healing of a cut at this point without understanding the quantum model of reality, and that there are particles, which are matter, it's you and I and everything in this physical world. And then there's energy, and that energy has a consciousness, it has an awareness, and that energy is a field of information that we are an extension of, that we have access to, and that we spend so much of our life looking outside of ourselves instead of looking inside of ourselves, and that we are really conditioned to look just for particles and matter instead of energy and information. And truly, when people reach the end of their beliefs or they're facing crisis in their life, that's the moment they start to turn within and start to ask the bigger questions. And if you were astute enough to look at this in moments of contemplation, if you were wanting to hide God anywhere, it would be a good place to hide. It would be within the human being, because everybody's looking outside of themselves, and we look for reasons to change and regulate our emotional states. You know, we think that things and people and external things will really fulfill emotions that we're trying to change within us, and that truly when we start to really investigate who we are and look to see how we do that and demystify it, I think once we start to demystify it, it can become a skill. And so Einstein was a super cool guy because he spent a lot of time inward, and at 12 years old, he asked himself this simple question: if I ride my bicycle at the speed of light and I turn my lamp on, I turn my headlight on, will it go on? So he thought about that question every single day of his life. Every day of his life, he would go out in a boat on a lake as a child and lay on his back in the boat and look up at the sky and think about this. And he was building models of understanding. He was working his best to be able to figure out how light and energy were related. He did it for 10 years. He was possessed by the concept. And finally, he was working as a third-rate clerk in a Swiss patent office, and he was watching this man fix the roof across the way. And he just paused for a moment, and he was watching him, and the moment he was watching him, he got this incredible vision, and he understood how light and energy were related. It was a very abstract vision, and it was so abstract and so dimensional that he had to go back to school to learn the mathematics to be able to explain what he saw. And so it became very interesting, because when Einstein published his papers on relativity, he didn't say like, hey, this person said this and this person said this, and I'm going to footnote this person. He just said, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it is. And it rocked the scientific community, because he didn't really need anybody else as a reference. He had a discovery. And his discovery was so unique, and his brain really was wired for the understanding of light, and light was the ceiling of this reality. And so Einstein and Planck started doing these really interesting experiments where they were taking energy and they were putting energetic impulses into metals. And what they were looking to see is if electrons behave the same way as the very large. In other words, when an apple falls from the tree, it falls in a very specific way. It falls towards the center. It falls towards the larger body. So he reasoned, well, if we disturb electrons, and him and Planck were doing these experiments, if we disturb these electrons, then they should fall just like an apple falling from the tree towards the nucleus. It should be predictable, just like it's predictable in Newtonian physics and classical physics. Well, when they started disturbing the electrons, something very unusual happened. The electron gained energy, then it lost energy, and it gained energy, and it lost energy. And it gained energy, and it lost energy. And instead of it falling like a ball rolling down a hill, it was like a ball rolling down steps. All of a sudden, they became very aware that the subatomic world, the very tiny, didn't behave like the very large world. And so then they started to look for the electron. They started to try to measure it, and everywhere they looked for it, it appeared. And when they turned their back on it, and they no longer looked to measure it, it went from a particle that collapsed, called collapsing the wave function, back into energy. Now, this was a revolutionary moment, because this meant that subjective mind, your mind has an effect on the objective world. That mind and matter are somehow correlated. And so this birth of quantum physics came along. And this quantum physics experiments say that you cannot do a quantum physics experiment without an observer around. In other words, a mind always has to be present, because it will influence the outcome. You with me? So now that invisible field of spirit, that invisible field of information and energy, somehow you as an individual can influence the nature of reality with your mind. So now Einstein had a lot of trouble with this because he said God doesn't play dice and it doesn't work like this, but his brain was wired for light. And so he had the abstraction and he was getting the download of information, understanding the field of light. And the quantum physicists were saying, well, actually, there's a field of information beyond space and time, beyond light, where everything is unified. You can take two photons that have been somehow related in a specific atom and shoot them to the opposite ends of the universe. And the moment you affect one photon at the exact same time, the other one is affected. So they were being connected or affected in a realm faster than the speed of light. In other words, it would take time if you affected one for the other one to be affected. But if they were beginning to be affected at the exact same time, they were connected in a realm beyond physical reality. Are you with me? And so when the movie What the Bleep came out, and we basically made an effort to show that your mind has an effect on reality, and that in order for you to begin to change your reality, you got to change your mind and change the way you live your life. And we wanted people to become inspired by the process of creation, really give it a shot. And that independent of your gender, of your race, of the color of your skin, of your intellectual ability, independent of your past, independent of your age, that on some level we are all divine creators. And that these models of reality that have separated individuals have all been built on human beings living in a very limited state of mind. And so when quantum physics was born and the whole concept of reality began to unfold, people started to really challenge the nature of reality and that concept that you are somehow connected because you are made of photons and atoms and electrons, that on some level you are an organization, a community of 70 trillion to 120 trillion cells, and all of those cells are made up of atoms and molecules and chemicals. And all of those are working in a coherent form to express yourself as a physical body. Some of the research shows that, 90% of the thoughts that we think on a daily basis are the same thoughts as the day before. So if you think that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, and 90% of your thoughts are the same known thoughts that you're always thinking, then your life should stay the same. Because the same thoughts lead to the same choices. The same choices lead to the same behaviors. Same behaviors create the same experiences. The same experiences produce the same emotions. Those same emotions tend to influence the way we think. And our biology, our neurocircuitry, our neurochemistry, our hormones, and even our gene expression is equal to how we think, how we act, and how we feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. So then it makes sense then. If you want to create a new personal reality, a new life, you're going to have to change your personality. And you've got to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. You've got to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors, even how you speak. Then you have to look at the emotions that you live by every single day and decide, do these emotions belong in my future? So many people try to create a new life as the same person. In order to create a new personal reality, you've got to change your personality. So the principle in neuroscience says that nerve cells that fire together wire together. Thinking the same way, making the same choices, demonstrating the same actions, creating the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you. And you do that for 10 years in a row. You're going to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature because you're firing and wiring that way. And that box in the brain, that becomes our personality, becomes our identity. And by the time we're 35 years old, for the most part, we've done something so many times that the body now knows how to do it as well as the mind. And that's a habit. So we have these unconscious programs of behaviors, automatic habits, redundant emotional reactions, hardwired beliefs, perceptions, attitudes that function just like a computer program. You press go and it runs automatically. So then when it comes time to change, thinking positively is going to do nothing because your body has been conditioned for the most part into a program in the past. So the thought never makes it to the body because the body's on a different program. So how do we begin to influence the body so that the thought actually produces some type of change? So think about it. If you think an unhappy thought, you're going to feel unhappy. If you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. Once you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And people get caught in these loops of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking. And that redundancy is a conditioning process because all you need is an image or a picture or a thought and a feeling, a response, stimulus response. And so the people tend to condition their brain and body into the past. And so when it comes time to change, you got to leave that familiar territory. And any choice that you make, if you said, hey, I'm going to eat a better diet, I'm going to wake up early and work out, I'm going to do meditation, the moment you decide to do something differently, get ready, because it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment. That means you've left your known biology and you're stepping into the unknown. Now, theoretically, that sounds great, but if the body has been conditioned into a familiar feeling, it's in the known. The moment you take it outside the familiarity, it wants to go back to where it's comfortable. So the body starts influencing the mind. And this is where people say, I want you to start your diet tomorrow. Oh, why don't you start working out this evening? You're really never going to change. You're too tired. You have a headache. This doesn't feel right. And this is where people talk themselves out of it. Because if they respond to that thought leads to the same choice, which leads to the same behavior, creates the same experience, produces the same feeling. And then they say, this feels right? No, that feels familiar. So going from one state of mind and body to another state of mind and body, you got to cross a river. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. Now, once people understand that they're going to be uncomfortable, then the question is, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors will you demonstrate in one day? And the act of closing your eyes and rehearsing who you're going to be when you open your eyes begins to install neurological hardware in your brain to look like you've already done it. Now the brain, which is typically a record of the past, now becomes a map to the future. And if you keep doing it, the hardware begins to become a software program. And you start behaving differently. And then if you can teach your body emotionally what the future will feel like, that means then you're not going to wait for your wealth to feel abundant or your success to feel empowered or your new relationship to feel love. In fact, the moment you start feeling abundant, you're generating wealth.